Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Runes and Red Tape, the storytelling channel where magic meets paperwork and epic quests have to be approved in triplicate. Oh, and please remember to hit that like and subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything and it really helps the channel out. Right then, this week's story is called Noshit Sherlock and the Vengeful Widow. Death, as it transpires, need not be the end. Of course you can go to the light and that is that, but what if you have a question? What if you didn't quite complete your life's mission? What if you feel aggrieved? What then? You are dead, said Noshit Sherlock, glancing up from a fire that had not existed moments earlier. Wow, I could see why you're the ether's greatest detective, said the woman seated opposite him. Noshit raised an eyebrow. The ends of his mouth curled upwards slightly. And how may we be of assistance? He glanced over at his friend sitting in the corner and gave him a curt nod. Watson poured the tea and offered the lady a cup. The woman sat stiffly in the chair, her outline wavering at the edges as though reality had not quite decided whether to commit to her. She wore the expression of someone who had spent a lifetime being mildly dissatisfied and had every intention of continuing the habit for the rest of eternity. "I have come," she said, "for justice." "Most people do," said Noshit, "although very few bring any with them." "I wish my husband dead." She raised her hand before Noshit could say anything. "Yes, I am aware that he will die eventually, but—" her expression tightened. "I require it sooner." The ever-helpful Watto interjected. "One does admire efficiency in these matters." "I am not being unreasonable," she insisted. "The man has wronged me." "In what way?" Noshit asked. She nonchalantly waved her hand. "He knows what he did." She hesitated. "I'm sure of it." Noshit made a note in the file. Client certain, evidence absent. "May I ask your name?" "Mrs. Delamere." "And the manner of your death?" She hesitated again, though this time it seemed less deliberate. "Well, I do not recall precisely." She took a breath. "It was sudden and unjust. Of that I am certain." "Oh, death often is," Watto offered sympathetically. Noshit snapped the file shut. "We shall investigate." Very few ethereal beings were given the ability to move freely between the worlds of the living and the dead. They had to understand that the transition between the underworld and the living world is less a journey and more a change of emphasis. One moment everything is vague, echoing and tinged with existential uncertainty. The next, one is standing in a perfectly ordinary sitting room, confronted by upholstery of a rather aggressive floral design and a floor covering apparently longing to be noticed. Mr. Delamere was a man of moderate height, moderate build, and what might be termed moderate enthusiasm for existence. He looked up from his desk as his maid introduced Noshit and Watto into his drawing-room. "So how can I help you?" Mr. Delamere pointed to a couple of chairs as Noshit gave him his business card. Mr. Delamere's expression shifted from confusion to something approaching alarm as he read the card. Noshit Sherlock, Phantom Detective Agency. He looked up. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. "Your wife is dead," said Noshit, filling the conversational void. "Profoundly," Watteau added for the sake of clarity. Mr. Delamere blinked. "Oh," he said. A pause followed, heavy and uncomfortable. "Well, thank you for confirming," he continued. "I was, however, already aware." Noshit regarded him closely. "Forgive me for suggesting, but you do not appear to be grieving." Mr. Delamere smiled. "I am processing in my own way." "Which appears to involve not grieving," Noshit observed. Mr. Delamere shifted defensively. "Look here, my good fellow, I cared for my wife, dutifully. But she had standards." "Please," Noshit smiled, "do go on." "For instance," Delamere continued, warming slightly, "there was the matter of the towels." "The towels?" Watteau echoed. "They must be folded in a particular fashion." Delamere took a short breath. "Not merely folded, you understand, but arranged, aligned, harmonized." "Oh, good Lord!" Watteau murmured. "And the lavatory seat?" "Oh, say no more," Watteau said. Noshit glared at him. "But I shall say more," Delamere insisted. "It was a point of principle, a campaign, really." Noshit nodded. "And so you killed her?" "What? No." "You deny it?" "Vehemently." Noshit made a small note. "Denial emphatic. Intelligence moderate. Murderous tendency unlikely." "What of violence?" Noshit asked. "Arguments? Threats?" "We argued," said Mr. Delamere. "Of course we argued. But murder? No, sir. I lack the energy." "Oh, sensible position," Watteau said. Noshit rose. "You may consider yourself provisionally innocent." Provisionally?" "Pending further evidence." Mr. Delamere sank into his chair. Back in the ether, Mrs. Delamere awaited her report with the patience of someone who had never in her life or death considered patience a virtue. "Well?" she demanded. "Your husband is not a murderer," said Noshit. "He would say that." "Who did?" Watteau confirmed. "He is deceitful." "He is relieved," said Noshit. "The distinction is important." Her expression hardened. "You have been taken in by him." "Madam," said Noshit, "I am rarely taken in. Occasionally I am left behind, but that is quite different." She rose, her ghostly form flickering slightly at the edges. "He has wronged me." "In what way?" Noshit pressed. Again there was a pause, a hint of uncertainty. He was careless." "With your life?" "With everything," she snapped. "The towels, for one thing." "Yes," said Noshit, "we have heard about the towels, and the way he ate his breakfast toast. It was noisy and reckless. One might almost call it vandalism." Watson scribbled furiously. "And then there was his breathing." Noshit raised an eyebrow. "His breathing?" "In winter, particularly. Audible, persistent." "Madam," said Noshit, "if audible breathing were grounds for execution, the human race would be extinct." She faltered. "He said things like, 'That's interesting.' when he actually meant to say no, she added, less forcibly. Many do, Watteau said. He once purchased curtains without consulting me. Oh, monstrous, Watteau murmured. Noshit leaned forward. These are irritations, madam, not motives for murder. They were cumulative. Mrs. Delamere was wavering, her outline blurring for a moment before snapping back into focus. I remember being angry, she said, and then more quietly, very angry. At what? She hesitated, cannot say. Noshit's gaze sharpened. You cannot recall the moment of your death. You cannot articulate a motive, yet you demand vengeance. Yes, she said, though the word lacked conviction. Feelings, said Noshit, are notoriously poor witnesses. She sank back into her chair. What am I to do? Noshit closed the file with a decisive snap. We shall consult the records. The office of the Grim Reaper was a study in organised despair. The hall of remembrance stretched into an indeterminate distance, laden with files and folders and the occasional existential crisis. A desk stood at the entrance, behind which sat the Reaper himself, robed, hooded, and deeply, profoundly busy. His scythe was propped up against the wall behind him. He did not look up as they entered. Take a number, he said, his voice booming off the walls. We already have it, and it is incorrect, said Noshit. This caused a pause, then a slow, deliberate lifting of his skull. Grim fixed his gaze on his interloper. The sparkling mini-neutron stars that replaced his eyes shone brighter. You are suggesting, said the Reaper, that my records are incorrect? Noshit nodded. My records, he continued, are never incorrect. Noshit placed the file on the desk in front of him. Then this will be a novel experience. Grim regarded him for a long moment. He sighed, a sound that suggested the weight of eternity had developed paperwork. What is the name of the deceased? Delamere, Mrs. The Reaper extended a skeletal hand. The file slid towards him of its own accord. He opened it. There was a silence. Somewhere in the distance a death knell rang. There was another silence as Grim turned over another page. This was followed by a third, more thoughtful silence. Ah, said the Reaper. Noshit inclined his head. Indeed. The Reaper cleared his throat, which was impressive feat given the apparent absence of one. There appears to have been a minor administrative oversight. Define a minor, said Noshit. A box, said the Reaper, was ticked. The wrong box, Noshit suggested. The Reaper did not reply, which was answer enough. Cause of death, he read, recorded as murder, domestic, when in actual fact it should have been marked as accidental, domestic. May one inquire as to the details? Grim consulted the file again. Standing on a chair, Mrs. Delamere was attempting to adjust the curtain rail. She lost her balance. The resultant impact with the hard wooden flooring was terminal. There was a pause before he shut the file with more force than strictly necessary. "The error has now been corrected." "And the consequences?" Noshit asked. "The subject should not have been classified as vengeful," said the Reaper. "She does not meet the criteria to remain in the ether." "Which explains the absence of a coherent motive." "And the gap in her memory," Watto added. The Reaper nodded. "Without genuine grievance, there is nothing to sustain her presence here." "In other words," said Noshit, "she is a victim of bureaucracy." The Reaper's silence suggested this was not an unfamiliar situation. Mrs. Delamere looked up as they returned. "Well?" she demanded, though there was less force behind it now. Noshit remained standing. "You were not murdered," he said. She blinked. I beg your pardon?" "You died accidentally while adjusting a curtain rail." There was a long pause. "I don't believe you." "You stood on a chair," Noshit continued. "You overreached. You fell. It was, I am afraid, entirely mundane." Her form flickered. "Then why am I here?" "Clerical error." She stared at him. "Clerical?" "The wrong box was ticked." The anger drained from her expression with surprising speed, like water from a bath with a philosophical leak. "So I do not hate him?" "You never did," said Noshit. "Not sufficiently." She sank back into her chair. "I remember being cross," she said faintly. "Yes," said Noshit. "The towels?" "Irrelevant, I'm afraid." "The breathing?" "Inconsequential." "The curtains?" Noshit said nothing. She looked down at her hands, which were beginning to lose definition. "I suppose," she said slowly, "he wasn't so bad." "No," said Noshit. There was a quietness then, a gentle unravelling. Her outline softened, faded, and began to dissolve into a thin mist. "Do you think," she said, "he will remember me?" Noshit glanced at the file. The ink was already beginning to pale. "Briefly," he said. She nodded. "That seems fair." And with that she was gone. And so ends the case of the Vengeful Widow. The end. Okay. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please like, subscribe, all the usual stuff, and I will catch you next time. Take care and stay safe.